How to write for English Literature Paper 2. In this video, we will look at Section C of Paper 2. This is the unseen poetry section. An unseen poem is a poem that you haven't studied before in class. In this section, you will answer a question on an unseen poem and then another question comparing its methods with a second unseen poem. In this video, we will look at the format of the questions, how to deal with the first unseen poem, how to compare the methods of both unseen poems, advice on using quotations, final tips. For Section C of Paper 2, there are two questions. The first one is worth 24 marks and will ask you to analyse the first unseen poem only. The second question is for 8 marks and you will need to compare the methods the poets use in both the unseen poems printed on the page. You have 45 minutes to write your answer. Spend 35 minutes on the first question and 10 minutes on the second. You should spend up to 5 minutes making notes on the first unseen poem. In this case, the richest poor man in the valley. Read the question carefully because this will give you a clue as to what the poem is about. Here, the poem is about living a happy and contented life. Read the poem through once. Then read through again, highlighting anything which suggests or refers to living a happy and contented life. At this stage, you're just looking for potential evidence. Begin by very briefly summarising what the poem is about. Equally, you could talk about what the title means, as the example on screen has done. Note how the answer echoes the key wording of the task, living a happy and contented life. Then track through the poem, picking up on your highlighted evidence and linking it to a point about how to live a good life. You should be familiar with this approach from the reading sections of the English language papers. It's also the approach to take with the printed anthology poem in Section B. There's no need to use everything you've highlighted, but do try to say something about the beginning, middle and end of the poem. How a poem ends is often very important, as it's the last thing left in the reader's mind. A copy of the example answer is available to download from either the ETV page or YouTube site. It isn't quite a full one, but it should give you a clear indication of how to write about the printed poem. Because the poem is printed for you, there's no excuse for not consistently using supporting quotations and offering a close analysis. It's probable that you will spend about 25 minutes writing about the poem. In terms of marks, this is the lowest question out of the entire English literature exam, but it's still worth thinking carefully about. You will be asked to compare the first poem with the second one. The key to success is to focus on the poet's methods. A large number of people who sit the exam forget about this and end up writing a straightforward comparison. This is understandable but means lower marks, 1 or 2 at best. So, how do you avoid this trap? First, work out which perspective each poem is written in, and then if it uses direct address or indirect address. On screen is a reminder of what these terms mean. In this example, richest poor man is written in the third person. Nobody is in the second person. This also means that it uses direct address whilst the first one does not. Next, consider the way each poem is organised. This includes whether they have one stanza or more, if they use rhyme, have a regular rhythm, make use of enjambment, etc. You can work out rhythm by quickly counting the syllables of the lines to see if there's a pattern. Here, both poems are organised into stanzas, but nobody has regular 5-line stanzas, the other poem is irregular. Nobody has a fairly regular rhythm in its lines, unlike Richard's Poor Man, which is written in free verse, non-rhyming, non-regular rhythm. Both contain frequent enjambment to give the argument they present greater flow. Finally, if there's time, take a look at the poet's use of language. This means finding similes, metaphors, or personification. Equally, finding any patterns in the use of words or types of words is relevant. And repetition for effect is appropriate here too. Usually, you would need to quote examples from the poem or poems in your answer. Lindsay McRae's poem is rich with similes and metaphors, compared to Michael Laskey's, which doesn't really have any except for the overall metaphor of a snowy day. It does use repetition of or to emphasize just how many options there are to make the most of the snow. The examples we've just gone through are not all the methods the poets use, but they do demonstrate how there's plenty to write about. You're not expected to write about every one of the methods that have been mentioned. 6 are enough. Therefore, a successful answer will look something like the one on the screen. Notice how succinct, short and precise the answer is. A useful strategy is to use discourse markers, or connectors, to help structure your comparison clearly. These are in green. You haven't got very long. The advice is to spend 10 minutes on this question. That includes thinking time. Even if you're short of time, it's definitely worth getting a couple of sentences down, even if it's just about perspective and address. Again, a copy of the example comparison is available to download from either the ETV page or YouTube site. There are different ways of using quotations. The add-on, don't write "I know this because the poem says," just use a colon, much quicker and better. The aside, using either brackets or dashes. The integrated quote, this is the best one to use as it gives the impression that you are exploring the text and helps to give a flow to your answer. By the way, these different ways work for all the literature questions and the reading sections of the language papers. The important thing is to support your points with clear and precise evidence from the text. It helps to A, show what you mean, and B, make your argument more convincing. Allow 5 minutes to check your work carefully. Make sure your points are clear, well supported, and relevant to the question. It is likely that your answer will be at least on the second page somewhere, unless you have very small handwriting. However, don't be tempted to spend more than 45 minutes on the questions in total. Divide the 45 minutes as follows: 5-minute note-making for the first question, 25 minutes writing your answer, 10 minutes writing on the second question, 5 minutes checking both answers. Remember, for the age mark question, to focus on the poet's methods. A tip is to use the poet's surname to help you keep you focused on their methods. Finally, for many students, this is their best section, so think hard. You won't have seen the poems before, so you're not expected to know the correct answer. In the end, the examiner is looking to credit reasonable, well-supported points. Good luck and take care.